Okay, I think it's about time to start. So, hello everyone, welcome to my talk, Cloud Native Spring Boot Admin. And at first I'd like to apologize for this catchy, buzzwordy title. And after looking at all the cloud vendors and thinking about it, which vendor I should show, I was thinking, okay, what's the common denominator today with all the cloud vendors? And most of the cloud vendors are offering some Kubernetes cluster or managed Kubernetes, or even if you're doing your private cloud or something like that, mostly you will use Kubernetes. So maybe the title should be Spring Boot Admin on Kubernetes. So that's what we are going to see in the next 45 minutes. I guess we have some minutes left in the end for questions. And yeah, you will learn a lot about Spring Boot Admin, the tool itself, and you might learn something about Spring Cloud-Kubernetes, the new kit on the Spring Cloud block. And yeah, I will show how you can use the discovery from Spring Cloud-Kubernetes with Spring Boot Admin. First, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Johannes. I'm from Germany, as you most probably can tell from my heavy accent. I'm working for Codecentric, a consultancy company from Germany, and I'm the maintainer of the Spring Boot Admin project. The project itself is about 4.5 years old. We have over 7,000 stars on GitHub, and it's Apache license, so you can use it for free. We don't earn any money with it. It's all for fame and glory. And the thing why I can do this is my company allows me to work 20% of my work time on this project or anything else I like. So some colleagues are looking into machine learning, some others into other weird fancy AI stuff and such things, or blockchain or whatever. And I'm doing the Spring Boot Admin project, but yeah, I can tell you 1 day a week is by far not enough, so I also invest a lot of my private time. And yeah, we have to, first we need an application we'd like to monitor, and maybe you saw the talk from my colleague Benjamin yesterday about chaos engineering. I just ripped his application, so maybe the slide looks familiar. We have just a Spring Boot application using Spring Cloud Gateway in front, which just has some REST endpoints and which talks to the Spring Boot application in the back, which also are replicated. We have multiple pods. It's really just a bit of REST. Yeah, I guess Benjamin and me was too lazy to write some nice UI for this example. And yeah, we have an ingress in front to access all the things. And yeah, now I will show you how we can monitor this application without touching the code of it. And we even don't need to build new container images for these applications. We have some requirements for the applications to be monitored. We have to use the Spring Boot Actuator. So, but if you're using Kubernetes, you most probably have it already included for the liveness and readiness probes. And also, the actuator endpoints have to be exposed via HTTP. And let's say if you have a simple message queue worker or something like that, and doesn't have a servlet engine or a netty included, you can't monitor it currently with Spring Boot Admin. So at one company, we just have Tomcat included in some batch processes, and just for the sake of monitoring the things. Okay, next I will show you how to set up the Spring Boot Admin. And the easiest thing would be to go on start.spring.io. I think since 1 year or 1.5, we're integrated into the Spring Boot and to the Spring initializer, so you can easily generate a project from there. The downside, as we want to use Kubernetes, it's currently not available. I hope they will make it soon into the initializer, but yeah, you have to do it by hand. I prepared a little bit for that, so I'm not going to bore you with writing Docker files and such. For the admin server itself, you just need to include the Spring Boot admin starter server, which will pull in some jar files containing the UI for Spring Boot admin and the REST endpoints. And we also separated a bit of the Spring Cloud dependent stuff. In the recent times, we had some releases which didn't support any Spring Cloud stuff, and because they weren't ready yet. I hope we will not experience that anymore, but yeah, time will tell. Also, we need the spring-cloud-kubernetes starter, which ships the discovery client for Spring Cloud Kubernetes. And yeah, we have no versions here. We have for Spring Cloud a BOM we are going to import, and we also provide a BOM for the Spring Boot admin. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I hope you're used to Spring Cloud. Anyone using Spring Cloud already? Yes. Okay, what are you using, Eureka or Shout It? Config Manager? Okay. Yeah. Okay, now we have our dependencies in place. And we just need to do some configuration on our application class. First, we have to enable admin server, which is going to instantiate some Spring Boot configurations with all the controller stuff and background tasks for checking health, etc. We have to use the add-enable discovery client. So the Kubernetes discovery client gets included. And it was until yesterday not in the docs, but the issue has been closed yesterday. We have to enable scheduling because the Spring Cloud Kubernetes client has a scheduled task for watching the changes of services, endpoints, and pods. And if we forget that, we will see services, but they won't get updated as they change or new comes up, others go down. So it's really important to use this. We would be right to go, and we could now spin this up. There is one trick. You might have some non-Spring Boot services on your cluster. I don't know, databases, Golang stuff. I don't know. And if you just want to have the Spring Boot applications in your Spring Boot admin, you can use this the servers label selector from the Spring Cloud Kubernetes client, and it will only show you the services tagged with this label. Yes, the other thing I'm going to explain later. Now we can spin this up. We have to wait a little bit to get things running. Come on. Now, there it is. And, we see the UI. I forgot some little things. As you know, we are running on Kubernetes. The admin application deploys like any other Spring Boot application. So if you're using Kubernetes, are you using Kubernetes? Show of hands, yeah? Okay, so I don't have to explain that much. We have a regular deployment with the image. I pre-built this image, and the important part is we have to use a service account, and the service account gets associated with a certain role, and this role for the role-based access in Kubernetes allows us to get, list, and watch all the pod services and endpoints. This is also one thing currently missing in the documentation of Spring Cloud Kubernetes. And I only saw one example listing all of the verbs and all of the resources, and yeah, maybe you should go and try to figure out what you really need to use, and that's the minimal list I'd come up with. So we just want to read things, we don't want to manipulate any stuff. And I've set up an ordinary service for the Spring Boot admin and some ingress. So nothing special about that. And yeah, if you go on the UI, we see the all applications. We also provide a nice wallboard view if you want to put a big screen on your wall in your office. Yeah. And I will just simulate what's going to happen if I take a service down. The Spring Boot admin regularly polls in the background, and now we see hot deals is yellow, which means restricted. One of the instances has a problem, so we see the application is down. I just switched the health in the background to out of service, and what should happen next is that, yeah, it's now green. The Kubernetes just killed the service, and should a second one should spin up in a few seconds and show up also here in the dashboard. We currently don't have any check for having at least a certain instances of an application. Yeah, we might add this in the future. I think it's really useful to check the minimal instances. If I would run this on HTTPS with TLS security, I would have gotten a desktop notification. Yeah, because I'm just running plain HTTP, we couldn't see that. But I have also set up a mail notification, and just used a test SMTP server Mailhawk, very nice tool if you want to use test some mailing. And I've have a notification, yeah, your instance was going down. And we also provided plenty of other notifiers, so Slack, Microsoft Teams, whatever. And most of the notifications are really easy to set up. For the mail part, I just included the Spring Boot starter mail, and then needed to tell where the mail host, the SMTP server, is located, and just an email address. And if something goes wrong, you just get a notification immediately. But maybe you have some other alerting in place. Spring Boot admin has a lot of different benefits than notifications. If you're running a cluster, maybe you should use a more professional solution. Yes. Now, what what you might have noticed is that I also show the version in the list. And this is not out of the box. The Spring Boot admin itself takes the information from the info endpoint, and to have that included, it's very easy. You need just to include the build info goal for your Spring Boot Maven plugin. And when doing the build, the goal will take some information from your build, put it in a build.properties file, include it in your jar, and that will be shipped with when requesting the info endpoint. There is a plugin, I think it's called Git commit ID plugin, which is doing similar things, but also includes the commit or tag or branch, whatever, information from your Git, and includes this into the info endpoint. And if we're going to view some of the details, I just take another one. Yeah, you can also see what the artifact, what's the description or the name, the group ID, when was it built, etc. But despite that, we only see, okay, the instance is up, and nothing really. So we just see on the left just the details, and we have plenty more. By default, Spring Boot Actuator only exposes the info and the health endpoint, and we really have plenty more endpoints which you can visualize in Spring Boot admin. So you just need to expose the endpoints, and as promised, I won't touch the applications, so I just set an environment variable with Kubernetes to do that. So it's the exposure include. With a star, I just expose all of the endpoints. If you don't want that, list them here, so you can exclude some of the endpoints. Spring Boot admin will just hide the view for that endpoints. It will not lead to any errors, but maybe you don't want to expose the full power and have the full responsibility for everything. And we also expose the details from the health endpoint, so we get the information for each of the health indicators. And you have three options: never, which is the default, so you just get the single up, or you can use when authenticated. Currently, I don't use any security authentication mechanism here. I will come back to that later. And I use the option always, so we just always show all details. Now, everything should have been redeployed. And take another one, I take this one. And now we see all the details of the health indicators. We also support custom health indicators. You should see everything here. So in this application, I just included a data source, which is an SQL DB. And Spring Boot Actuator automatically set up the health indicator for that. Also, what's I think a nice shortcut is, I have included the Swagger UI in this application, but I don't want to memorize all the URLs for my different application in the different Swagger UIs, and yeah, so I just included a property, info.swaggerui, and then an URL, and it will get rendered as link, so I just can click on it, jump straight to it, and I don't have to memorize anything. And also, I could use Kubernetes and some environment variables to make this dynamic for each of my environments, for example. Okay. Now, yeah, we just exposed all of the endpoints, which is probably not what we might want to do in production. This is the normal ingress endpoint from my application, and now I exposed everything to the outside world. So please don't do that. You could write some magic, crazy ingress rules to block that path. Or you could just change the port for the management server for the actuator. This is what we're going to do next. Just start it so we don't have to wait. For the applications, we just set the management server port, 9080 in this case, and expose it as container port. So it will be moved off the main port and won't be accessible via the my normal ingress. But somehow we need to tell the Spring Boot admin where to find the actuator endpoints. So we add a new port to our service and call it management. And then we have to tell the Spring Boot admin or the discovery client in particular, please, primary port name to use is management. So the spring-cloud-kubernetes will go through the endpoint list of the, or through the port list of the port, and will use the one named management. So now we should get a not found, yeah, for for the actuator path on our main ingress, but the Spring Boot admin still sees the endpoint and can access them. Yeah, a short recap. Yeah, we added the dependencies. We enabled the admin server, the discovery client, and the scheduling. Yeah, which I have not shown. Yeah, we need a Docker image, we need a deployment, a service, an ingress for admin, and we have to set up the role-based access control for the admin. Yes. We can use yeah, we have changed the management port. That's good. I will talk about Jolokia in a few seconds. And we have the custom links added with the info properties. And yeah, the external views, I can short demo. As you might have some others, some other applications like in Grafana for metrics or Kibana for logs. You might want to have all your applications tightly together. You can, with the new Spring Boot admin version coming up, add very easily a top-level link right here to any URL you like. We also provide an option to embed it as an iframe, so you can keep things close together, and yeah, it's less URLs to memorize, or your link list will get shorter. Yes. Now, this is how it's currently looks like. We have the ingress for the admin server. The admin server itself acts as a proxy to access the actuator endpoints. So you really want to make the admin server secure. And please, maybe you shouldn't expose the admin server on the web. Last week I just found one unsecured admin server via Google. Yeah, you can shut everything off, so no good idea. Yeah. And the admin server itself talks to the Kubernetes master or API to get the information for the pods. And if we do a request from the UI, it will be proxied via the admin server and will directly access the actuator endpoints. Which leads me to the topic security. So we currently ship no default, and I guess it will stay with that way, as we have too many options. Yeah, you could do none, which is not really an option, but you can do a classical session-based approach using cookies. We have a sample on that in our documentation. Typically in the setup, you authenticate on the admin server, and the admin server itself uses a service account to access the actuator endpoints in the back. So the decision whether the user can access the endpoint is made by Spring Boot admin. If you don't want to have it that way, you could use OAuth 2 and forward the tokens from the UI via the admin service to the real actuator endpoint in the back, and then the application in the back could decide whether the user is allowed or not to access the endpoint. And you would also need a second service account for the admin server just to fetch the health information in the background task, so for the health checking. But you wouldn't give it any other permissions like setting log levels or something. I will show you next. We also have an example by my colleague Thomas, who is also giving a talk about Keycloak today, I think. And he written a blog post about how to secure the Spring Boot admin with the with Keycloak. So it's also easy to set this up. And yeah, you could use anything else Spring security offers, as Spring Boot admin itself is just a Spring Boot application. So yeah, choose whatever fits best. Okay, screen is gone. Okay. Okay, now let's have a little tour through the endpoints. For each application, I showed this page. We have the build information, the health information, anything you put into the info endpoint. That's the metadata provided via the discovery client. You could also, we also see here the label. The label type Spring Boot. You could so add anything from Kubernetes you like. We have some rough metrics shown here. We have also a metric page which you could use to quickly see some numbers. List is too long, I don't know. And show the metric. The thing is, we don't persist any of this data. We just scraping the endpoints and looking, what's the current value, So if we switch views, everything is lost. And maybe go for Prometheus or InfluxDB and do something proficient if you're using a cloud environment. It's mostly when I do some local things, I just have a quick look at that. So on my Minikube, I don't need any Grafana or something like that. We show all the information from the environment endpoint. So we can see any system property set, any system environment variable set. We also see the contents of our application properties or YAML or whatever you use, also with the location where the setting is made. And if you have multiple settings with the same key. It reads from top to bottom, so the most top one is the active one. It's just the data we get from the environment endpoint, and I think this is one of the unique things you don't get with your regular monitoring tools. What you can also use, both with some caution, if you include the Spring Cloud, you get an environment endpoint you can post values to and change the current environment or even refresh the application context. So you can set here anything and it will be applied to your Spring application. But this is not persistent. When the application is going to restart, all is lost. So it's good to try out things quickly, but it's not so well suited for production, for example. Yeah. Also, we can see the active Spring profiles up here. Yes. We can see all instantiated beans. We have a bean endpoint, so we can see the beans and also what it depends on and which resource has instantiated this bean. We can also see all our configuration property beans. And in contrast to the environment endpoints, this has the benefit, we also see the default values. The environment endpoint would only show me the values explicitly set, but if we have some defaults in the configuration properties, I don't know, yeah, like the endpoint path, you also see the default. So you're really seeing what this property is bound against, and even it's the default. We also have a view for showing the schedule task. Yeah, I told you about the watch task for the services. We can see it here and how it's configured. Also useful. The endpoint doesn't allow you to stop or pause the task, so it's just view only. Yeah, for that I will switch the application one more time. One of the first things we implemented with Spring Boot Admin was the loggers endpoint, and it's the one I love most, I think. You can switch logging levels at runtime. I don't know, what is this? Either you believe me or I show you. Logs. 8, 9. No, follow. So when I'm going to trace, for example, yeah, we see now we have a lot of trace. Yeah, you should be also a bit cautious with that, as setting the root logger to trace might have some impact of your performance, or your log server is going to blow up. I don't know. And with the next version of Spring Boot Admin, we have some new feature here. We can now set the log levels of all application at one time. In the past, you had to click through any instance of the application, and now it's just one click, and there you go. We have a log file endpoint for the a log file view for the log file endpoint itself. The log file endpoint requires you to write a file on disk. So that's what the log file endpoint just delivers this file, and which is not very well suited for cloud. So I didn't have done that. I don't want to write a file in my Docker container. So that's also a point where you might want to use some professional solution like an Elk stack, Elasticsearch, and Kibana to do your log management. But if you have a smaller setup or for demoing things, you may just set a path for your log file and can easily watch the log file even with a follow function in the web UI. On my slide earlier, I had the Jolokia. What do you know Jolokia? Oh, okay. Jolokia is just a servlet delivering the JMX beans via REST, and you can interact with any JMX bean via REST with Jolokia. If you put the Jolokia core on your class path, Spring Boot Actuator will activate a Jolokia endpoint for you, and it comes with great power, but also with great responsibility. Spring Boot Admin provides a view. You can see any value. You could even change the values, invoke operations, and yeah, I don't know if I use the now I stopped my Tomcat connector and my application is going to blow. So yeah, great power, great responsibilities. But Jolokia has a concept of roles, etc., and you can restrict the access to JMX beans. I won't dive deeper into that, but if you want to narrow things down and maybe just have a read-only view, you can configure it. And the really nice thing about it, if you have some JMX beans to reconfigure your application, you have really an easy, nice way to interact with them without having RMI remote method invocation tunneling to your container, whatever. Yeah, just use Spring Boot Admin and the Jolokia REST endpoint, and everything is nice. We have a view of the threads currently running in my application. We also can get some informations. We just added this view after we had ourselves some deadlocks in production, and it was really a pain for us to get the thread dumps. I don't know, you can send it a kill signal and it will be spilled out to your console, but yeah, it's really, sometimes it's really hard to get an admin to do that for you if you're not allowed. And yeah, so it's very easy to get to view the current state of threads. Also, which is very nice, is there is a heap dump endpoint in the actuator, and you can just hit the button and download the endpoint. Be careful if you have a heap of 10 gigabyte, you will download a file of 10 gigabytes. And also, yeah, there will be passwords and everything in this file. I had a guy on the Spring Boot admin project, someone who wrote an issue and appended a heap dump on it. No good idea. So be careful where you're going to, who you're giving these files, and also writing the heap dump. When I recall correctly, it's the file is first written to disk and then delivered, and yeah, it may harm your application. Yeah, be careful. If you have a web application, we provide a view for easily seeing all your mapped endpoints. all servlets, all filters. So I use this a lot when I'm calling services from other teams. And how was it called? I don't know. Or maybe what do they offer? The documentation really sucks. So I hit the mappings and just watch. Okay, what have them? What do they have in place? We have an. Okay, why is it not working? We have an HTTP trace endpoint. I think I just need to hit the page. No. Which shows you on all the last 100 requests of made to your HTTP server. You can see the headers for the request, for the response. Some of the headers are not included, like authorization. I think it's not a good idea to expose it this way. And also the bodies of the request response are not included, as it would be too much data. And for the upcoming Spring Boot 2.2, the HTTP trace endpoint won't be active by default. They decided not to instantiate the underlying repository by default. So if you want to use that, instantiate an trace repository. Currently they ship only an in-memory solution, and Spring Boot will trace any request made. Also on the web topic is we provide a special a view for the endpoints in the Spring Cloud Gateway. It was a community contribution. I don't use it myself. You can delete routes, add routes. I don't know, you have to write some ugly JSON in there, so it's really for experts who knows what they're doing. The Spring Boot admin is looking at which actuator endpoint is exposed and provides a view. So this gateway view is only shown for this application. We have a view for audit events. With the audit event repository, it's the same with the trace repository. They decided not to ship it by default. Mostly it doesn't make sense in this application. Mostly it makes sense if you have also security applied, as for example Spring Security throws audit events for successful logins or for failed logins, and you could also just look what events happened here. Also, one nice thing, also a community contribution. If you're using some Spring cache compatible cache, like a JSR 107 cache or EH cache, Caffeine, Redis, there are plenty. You get a cache endpoint which allows you to evict your cache. And in the past, we often just restarted our server because it was the quickest thing to do. Now we can just hit the clear button and everything is good. Okay. Oh, I'm running out of time. Okay, let's do it a bit quicker. That's all the endpoint. Most of them I've shown. Not mentioned Flyway Liquibase. We can show you the status of your migrations. We have a sessions endpoint. If you're using Spring Sessions, you can use this endpoint to see all active sessions or even terminate the sessions if someone is behaving badly. As I mentioned, we have a lot of notification options. Slack, Microsoft Teams, blah, 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 blah. most of them are community contributions and are configured via properties, so no need to code. If you need some custom things, you can implement your own. It's a very simple interface to implement. Yeah, we have some more advanced customizations. I will do it very quick. I will put the code on GitHub and we'll make a tweet with the repository. If you, for example, want to prevent that someone is setting the root log level to trace, you can write an instance exchange filter function to intercept the request made from the admin server to the actuator endpoints. And this, for example, just okay, it's a post. It's a post to the loggers endpoint. Oh, the path ends with root. That's the root logger. Oh no, that's forbidden. And send status forbidden. So if I would do that on the UI, I would get, oh no, this failed. Yeah, that's a very easy custom notifier. We just log things to disk, to our log file, and Spring Boot admin internally is using some kind of event sourcing. So you get events for instance registered, endpoints detected, but also status down, status up, and that's what we are using for the Slack notification, mail notification, blah blah blah. We also provide some notifiers which are itself not really a notifier, but you can use them to filter notifications. Like if you know, I'm going to update my applications, I know this application will go down, yeah, set a filter. You can also do it via a REST request, so you could integrate it to your delivery pipeline and set it out, no, send me no notifications, and after 5 minutes everything should be okay, now send me some notifications. Yeah, and also we have a notifier which bugs you over and over again. When the application is going down, you get a notification. But if it doesn't come up, you will get a notification as well. So you are bugged until it's resolved. Yeah, the Spring Boot admin itself is using the Vue framework, and you can include your own views for custom endpoints. When I shut the application down in the beginning, I just used this endpoint. It's really easy. We have a read operation for the status, we have a write operation for the status, and this endpoint is also a health indicator. So if we set the status, for example, to out of service, the application is basically going down. And I've written also a small view for that, so I could do it with Spring Boot admin. I won't bother you with the build details, but you have to add some npm build to your POM, and we're using Vue CLI to build this. We have samples for that, so you better just copy this code. And on startup, there is a global variable. You register an install callback, which is used to register your custom view with a custom label. And this one. Yeah, and just write it as a simple Vue component. The Vue component itself will get the instance injected as property for which is currently shown. And on this instance, we configure Axios client to do the to interact with the actuator. So it's just here. If we click this set status or the button, we call the set status method, which is doing a post to the actuator endpoint. And yeah. Basically, when you build the application, there is some CSS, JavaScript bundle popping out at the end. Put it in a special place on your class path for the admin server, and it will show up as custom custom view, like this one. And yeah. Okay, that's basically it. We have a tag on Stack Overflow. If you have some suggestions, find a bug or anything else, file an issue on GitHub, or maybe do a pull request. And yeah, I will take some questions. I will stick here around for questions. And if you have questions tomorrow or on Monday when you try everything at work, I'm happy to chat with you on our GitHub channel. So I'm mostly active there. Thank you.